Today we are looking at the APC64 from Akai. Now Akai sent this over to review a few weeks ago, so I am finally getting to that review as an Ableton Live controller. No money was exchanged hands, and they have no say as to what goes in this video. I am legally obligated to let you know about that, so with that out of the way, let's get to it. Now hopefully by the end of this video you will have the knowledge to answer the question whether or not you should pick up this as an Ableton Live controller, because there's a lot of options out there. Even considering the Push 2 used, you could pick that up for like $400 or $500 off a Reverb, and this goes for 400 street value as well. So it's good to keep that in mind while you're watching this and considering the pros and cons of this unit. I should mention also there is a 8-track internal step sequencer that you can use standalone for hardware. Now, I'm not going to be covering that in great detail at all in this video. I actually did a video previously on that. So if you're curious about the standalone hardware sequencer abilities, I will link the video below so you can check that out. So as an Ableton Live controller, I obviously have it plugged in and hooked up to my computer. I also have a few software plugins loaded up so we can play with those. Now, right off the bat, I need to adjust the volumes on this stuff. And I thought I would show you how I can easily adjust volumes directly on this pad. So in this section right here, this basically delegates what these faders do. And as you can see, there's 8 faders on this device. So if I need to adjust the volumes, I hit volume, and these are color coded, so they actually match the tracks on here for Ableton. So I want to adjust everything down a bit. And the OLED screen right here will even tell you how much you're adjusting. So if I go all the way down, 0 volume right there, and bring it all the way up, let's go like -6 or so, or -8, that works. I just want to bring everything down a bit. So if I select the first track, this is Pigments that I'm currently playing. Second track, Mini Freak, and it shows you right here, Mini Freak. Third track is a tension track. Fourth track, some sort of ambient thing. These are just presets I loaded up. Then I have an FM bass. So first thing that you might want to do is change the key that you're playing in. As you can hear, this is a major scale that's already playing right here. So if I want to change that, I'd press note mode again, or even the chord mode. Either one of these, go into the config, and then I have all the options to change stuff. So right here, I can change the root note. As you can see, root note says E, D, C. We'll leave it at C. And then if I want to change the scale, I go down here and it gives you a bunch of scale options. So you could do chromatic. So if I go back to this, the chromatic scale. You could do major, melodic minor, harmonic minor, you know, etc., etc. Let's do Aeolian and go back to this. Pads feel good, by the way. You know, it's Akai, so they do a good job of making pads. These are obviously smaller than like an MPC pad, but overall, they feel pretty comparable to the Push. I'd say the Push probably feels a bit better, or the Push 2 specifically. So yeah, overall, these pads feel nice. I do like playing them. They're relatively sensitive. Sometimes I feel like I wish I was getting a bit more velocity sensitivity out of them. So I feel like it's kind of hard to get the soft stuff out of it. But maybe that's just my playing technique. And there's a few options in the editor. It's not like there's a ton of options. I think it's only like light, medium, hard. So let's go back to these faders right here. Like I said, I have device on this first one, and then volume, pan. Pan is pretty obvious. You can pan your instruments. Let's go to the first track. And honestly, this is a pretty clever way to be able to adjust things pretty fast. You got your send, channel strip type of stuff, and then off. If you don't want to bump these faders, it's very good to have the off because they are very sensitive. So let's go back to the device right here. The device basically maps to whatever is focused on Ableton. So if I open up Pigments here, there's these macros. And let's say I want to control the macros on Pigments with these faders. How do I do that? It's very simple. Now in Ableton, if you press the configure button where your VST plugin is, and then you start moving parameters on here, you'll see macro 1 has popped up on here, and it even says right here, macro 1. And then if I move the second one, and then the third one, and then the fourth one, I now have control of all the macros right here for this particular plugin. Let's go over to the Mini Freak now. If I open this up, same type of thing. Let's say I want the macros. Now that I have the Mini Freak selected, I'm going to do macro 1 and then macro 2. So now So again, the device control focuses on whatever you have, basically the hand right here that's focused on Ableton. So let's say I loaded up Valhalla Delay and then open this up. This automatically maps actually. So you can see, I think mix is the first one. And as you can see, the hand is on the Valhalla Delay plugin. So mix is currently being adjusted, and then you have delay style. That's not very useful. So what you could do is go in and edit all this stuff. Like you can just go in, delete all these, and then get the stuff that you actually want. Let's go with the delay. Let's go with feedback. Let's go with drive, age. Let's just work with those. So now, turn up the drive. Now, one thing that I don't see that is possible right now is being able to switch through the devices in Ableton itself. So you still have to use the mouse and select what you want to control with the faders. So for instance, I have Valhalla Delay selected. If I switch over to the Mini Freak, now I can adjust the Mini Freak. So not as convenient really. And that's kind of one of those things where this gets you a certain distance of the way to control Ableton, but you're definitely going to have to use the mouse and keyboard to be able to complete most of the tasks in your process, which isn't terrible, honestly, because you are using Ableton. For me personally, push 2, I never really liked to exclusively just use the push 2. I liked some of the basic features, and then I would still rely on the mouse and keyboard to complete a lot of other tasks. I feel like this kind of gives you that world right there, for me. I know some people are power users when it comes to the push, so your thoughts on this might be that it's really rudimentary in comparison, and that's totally fair. Let me grab a drum kit real quick. As you can see, it automatically switches to like a drum style. It's intelligent that way, where it knows what type of track it is. What it does not have, though, is a step sequencer that is associated with Ableton. This would actually be a good spot to record. In order to turn on the metronome, you click the button when you're not in any kind of context. Like it's just like a global context, session view. Click the button for the metronome to come on or off. So if I hit play, metronome's playing. Let's record something, but first I'm going to do fixed length. So I press fixed length right here. And then I hold it to adjust the length. I'll do 2 bars. Now if I hit record. So it's unquantized right now. I'm gonna turn off the metronome. Let's say I wanna add some hats to it. Let's add those to it. I'm gonna do MIDI overdub on this. So if I hold shift and press MIDI overdub, now when I hit play, anything I play, in fact, I'll load up the clip here. You'll see as I play, it'll start showing up the notes. So a bit sloppy, right? Now when I hit stop, MIDI overdub turns off. So anytime you want to turn it on, you got to hold shift and press MIDI overdub. Now let's have a look at the quantize here. So if I hold quantize, you have the selection of the subdivision, but what you don't have access to, which is really unfortunate, quantization strength. I use this all the time because I don't want everything 100% quantized. So if I want to quantize what I just recorded, I go over to session view and I happen to record the clip on the 7th row right here. I'm going to move that up so it's up here. In order to quantize, you hold quantize and then you press the clip. So if I go like this, everything is 100% quantized now. Sounds quantized, right? Let's undo that by pressing the undo. Now if I go over to Ableton and I do Command Shift U, pulls up the amount. So I can actually do 47, 50% or something like that. If I go apply, everything got slightly more quantized. So if I play that. So that's how you quantize things. And again, really unfortunate that you can't do like the amount like you can on the push 2, or I'm assuming on the push 3. You can tell it to quantize just a bit instead of 100%. I think that's a pretty big oversight in the workflow on this. I really wish the quantize could be an adjusted value of how much percentage. Unfortunate, really. So fixed length, I'm gonna change this to 4 bars and let's just record something. Okay. This is our mini freak with the Valhalla delay. It's actually kind of cool. Let's record this as well. I want to turn this track down. I'm gonna go like this. Now track 3, the tension. This thing is pretty dry right now. So I threw Valhalla delay, Valhalla vintage verb, and I put some Air Flavor Pro on there as well. Pretty simple. I think this I'm going to quantize here a bit. Now again, I can't quantize that passage just subtly. I have to go over the computer to do that. So there we go, 50%. And then we have a bass track. Might be a little too aggressive, but let's see if we can make it work. I need to quantize it. Yeah, let's quantize that. Again, I don't want to do 100%, so I'm not really quantizing with the APC64. Yeah. Let's adjust the tempo. If I hold tempo and increase it, bit much. Go back down. Maybe 125. Yeah. You get the idea. It's just a quick example. There is chord mode. I didn't even talk about this because I usually like to play my notes specifically, but in chord mode, you can actually choose a chord to play. In this particular case, 135. You could do 125, 145, 135, 7, you know, 7th chord, and then the 6th, and then 9th chord. Let's stick with the triad here. Go to chord mode. Too bright. Ooh, dreamy touch. This works. Looks like I flubbed a note right here and add another chord. Yeah, that's chord mode in a nutshell. Lastly, there is this step sequencer. I have a full video linked below on using that as a hardware sequencer, standalone hardware sequencer, so if you're curious about that. Here's my honest opinions about it. It's very limited and there's a lot of shortcomings. Like for instance, there's only 32 steps and you can't chain patterns or anything like that. You can chain projects. Problem is if you want to say keep track 1, and by the way, these tracks are separate from the Ableton tracks. A little confusing right there, this workflow. Like if you're in step sequencer, these suddenly become different tracks than what is in Ableton. What this does look like is the way push 2 or the push sequencer operates. Like for instance, if you select this and you start putting notes in here, like you have the beginnings of something like the push 2 sequencer. Again, it's limited to 32 steps. There's no thing right here to choose which measure you're on or anything like that. So that's unfortunate. You do have the ability to adjust velocity, so that's good, and you do have a probability type of thing. And then you have this mutate, which gives it the option to either go up or down an octave, depending on a chance type of thing. Those are all cool. I like that type of stuff, but I think this is pretty lackluster in comparison to something like the Digitact, or obviously just a modern MPC. That's gonna blow it out of the water. But it is possible that's what you want. You want something super rudimentary or super simple. And if that's the case, then it does have you covered because there is CV outs, which I didn't talk about yet, and there is 2 MIDI outs as well. So a lot of connectivity to other pieces of gear that you have in your studio. I guess the other thing that this does kind of open up with it having CV outs and additional MIDI outs is Ableton can then also become a dedicated sequencer for other pieces of gear just through the APC64. You can send MIDI information from Ableton out through the CV outputs through the APC64. So that's nice, right? But if you were looking for the ability to edit your sequences directly in Ableton on this controller, you cannot do that. The step sequencer is completely separate from Ableton. There's also a custom mode. Looking at the editor once again that you can get from Akai's website, you'll see the options. So if you click on these pads, you'll see that you can turn them into notes and it becomes chromatic automatically. Now what you can't do, which I find really strange, is you can't choose to make these CC values. You know, CC max value or CC minimum value. That's not possible. The only CC information that you can control in here is the sliders. It's interesting that they thought about that, but they didn't include any CC type of stuff on the pads. The other thing as well, looking at the editor, is you have all the space for these buttons, and yet they don't do anything. Like, huh? Why would you have a custom mode and then none of these buttons do anything? Because they're not controlling anything in custom mode. Like you could just click them, nothing's happening. Something that's really cool is you can actually control multiple instruments with just this interface right here. So if you go, let's say, scale keyboard and move it to the top, I can then tell it that I want it to be like channel 11, root note C, whatever octave. I can tell it what scale I want, let's say harmonic minor. And then I send the project to RAM. By the way, it changes colors as well, as you can see. Now you can do this with multiple stuff. So I can have like another scale right here, and we could send this to channel 3. And then I can have drum pads on this side. And we can like change the color as well. So yeah, let's send this. Send project to the RAM. So yeah. Quick discussion on the global settings. Something that is strange about this that I did mention in the previous video is that if you want to adjust the CV outputs for the step sequencer or for the standalone element as a step sequencer, you have to use the software to adjust that. I think it's a real shame because if you go to global, there's a lot of like real estate here that could be used to adjust things and it's just not available. But it's an Ableton Live controller, technically. First and foremost, Ableton Live controller. There is a lot to like about the APC64 and there is some strange question marks like this custom mode, the step sequencer. I don't think those really hit it out of the park. Now, there's a few ways to look at how you'd use something like this. There's the studio setting. I think the push 2 beats it, obviously. There's more features in the push 2 and it's more expensive. But if you were to get it used on Reverb, it would be about $400 or $500 or something like that. The other option is if you're looking for a controller to be like a laptop sidekick. If you just have your laptop and an APC64, you can actually make a lot of cool beats out of it with Ableton Live. And then if you were throw in like a Scarlett 2i2, you have a really powerful mobile setup right there. I actually used it quite a bit in the past couple of weeks as a laptop controller, and it feels really good. It's a nice setup. Finally, as a standalone sequencer, I don't think it's that great. If you want something that's super basic with 8 tracks, then it'll do it. If you're buying it for that, I think there's better options out there that I would look at instead, albeit probably more expensive options. And one final thing that I did not mention at all, there is polyphonic aftertouch, which is nice. I definitely like that. It isn't as sensitive as I thought it would be, but you know, I'm not complaining. It's nice to have it in the box. Thank you very much, Akai, for sending this over. I really do appreciate that. Thanks for supporting the channel. And if you do plan on picking up an APC64, if you use our affiliate links below, then it helps out the channel. And that goes for anything that you do plan on picking up. But thanks for making it to the end. If you have any comments, definitely drop them below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time for another one. Peace.